So what's the conclusion as we go along? What are the experiential implications of what we've even talked about so far? This is the whole point now. We're looking at suffering. We know we don't want it. We're looking at the causes. Why? Because Buddha says, you know what? You can get rid of it and its causes. Which is kind of a pretty powerful statement, you know. So blunt. So what he says is, you know, given that our mind is a continuity, we're taking that as our hypothesis here. Given it's not physical, it's not the handiwork of God, it's not the handiwork of mummy and daddy. These are big hypotheses because we have these other views, you know. And the word we say and do and think programs our consciousness, puts seeds in our mind that produce our experiences. As His Holiness says, it's like self-creation. It's a good way to put it, you know. So the spiritual implication of this is if we're going to take this as a hypothesis, and that's our call, no one can force us. And like any body of knowledge, you've got to take it as your hypothesis first. Even when you're first taught that 1 + 1 is 2, you can't. You have to first hear it. That means you've got to trust the person who tells you. It's obvious. You know, your teacher's got to say, tell me 1 + 1 is 2. You've got to say, okay, I'll learn that. 1 + 1 is 2. You memorise it first, then you've got to go and prove it. So you've got to start with a hypothesis. Everything we ever learn is like this, you know. And that means you've got to have a valid source. Anyone can tell you that 1 + 1 is 4. If you think they're cute and they've got a nice nose and you believe them, you'll be in trouble. So you've got to check your sources. This is really obvious and important. It's logical. And because we're so ridiculous, we believe anything anyone tells us. We use our noggins, you know. So it's our working hypothesis. It's the only way to say it. The emphasis, the implication there being that you can eventually prove it. Or prove it's wrong. Can't be in a hurry, one step at a time. Not merely believing. There's a massive difference between merely believing. Believing is still valid. You've got to believe your teacher before you go home and prove it. You've got to believe. You've got to trust that 1 + 1 is 2. You've got to trust that first, then you prove it. So you've got to have, your belief does play a role, but it's not based on because your teacher's nice. You've done your work. Okay, we didn't do our homework at 5. We didn't have a choice. We were forced onto the teacher. But when it comes to this stuff, we really better check carefully. This is really, really obvious, you know. And a friend of mine in America, in New York, an Indian woman from the continent in India, her ex-boyfriend, he made a video, he made a movie, he's Indian, and he did an experiment. He pretended to be a Hindu guru. He started an ashram. He pretended to give teachings. People all lined up and asked him to be their guru, and then he said it was all rubbish, just to prove people are idiots when it comes to spiritual. We believe anybody. I mean, of course they're angry with him, but they're proving the point. We believe anything anyone tells us. It's unbelievable. So it's really obvious. We've got to take it as a hypothesis. We better check first, not waste our time. Have some confidence, confide, with faith, with trust. That's the first point. Next one is we take it as a hypothesis. We have to do that. We can't prove it first. Then you have to know the theories. You've got to know the theories. You've got to know the theories. So if you say you want a nice garden, you've got to know the causes. And that's called putting seeds in and learning to know how to navigate a garden. Which you've got to learn it first theoretically. Which means you learn the theories. You have to know the theories. So you don't just say, oh yeah, I believe in botany. You can. You can always hire Justin to grow it for you. You can believe in mathematics. You can. You can ask Justin to go and buy you 5 oranges. But what if you have to go yourself? You don't know how to count, so you can't do it. You have to rely on someone else. But Buddha says we can learn it and know it and do it ourselves. We have to believe someone else. We're the boss. We are the boss. We have to know how to count. We have to know botany. We have to do it. That's the crucial point. You have to learn the theories. At least minimum. We say, oh, I believe in karma. I don't care if you believe in it. Oh, why did that happen? Oh, it's karma. Oh, how does it work? Oh, I don't know. What good is that? Idiocy. Learn some theories, even just basic ones that we're talking here. 4 results of karma. The kind of body you've got, your tendencies, your experiences, and the environment. That's the entire universe. Just these 4. Thinking this alone is even just this. Because every time something happens to you, let's say it's bad, or indeed good, because good's the same in logic. But the trouble is only when the bad things happen and we say, why did that happen? When the good things happen, we never ask why. We don't care why, just give me more, you know. And let's look into that. We'll go into the mind later. We'll talk about, look at the hubris of attachment and aversion. But also when it comes to bad things, good enough, the first thing we all say is, why did that happen to me? This is a very profound point. Everybody has that. And then if we don't have a cause, we don't know why it happened, that's why we go crazy, tearing our hair out. Why did this happen to me? We don't see any reasoning. And in the world, called experiences similar to the cause, when bad things happen to us, and you can see that you didn't do anything now to cause it, that's why we go crazy. That's why people suffer tremendously. So even though theoretically, taking on board theoretically Buddha's explanation, or Robina, someone lied to you is because you've lied before. That's a simple concept, but if you're buying into that, it is an explanation. Why did, someone leave me? Is an explanation. And we must also apply it to why good things happen. This is very important. We forget to do that. Because we just take the good for granted. We greedily just want more of it. We don't care why. This is really inappropriate. So we do understand karma as our hypothesis. We're not just saying this we do it in our prayers and we're being a holy Buddhist, we're applying it every day. And if you're an acupuncturist, you don't only apply it when you have your clients coming into your room. You're along the street, you're watching people. Oh my God, look at that disease. Oh, they need a bit of this, and liver this, and blah. Naturally you do that. Naturally you do that, You apply it all the time because you're learning, constantly learning it for it. That's how you should be with karma, every second. But we're so addicted to the other view, the view of self-existence, that it's just the way it is, it's not my fault, it's not fair, poor me, I didn't ask to get born, it's all done to me. It's not, and that's the view we have now. No one taught us that view. That's the view we brought with us. That's the view of ego grasping. That's the self-pity view. That's the view we buy into. That's the view that we apply every day. That's why we suffer. That's why we suffer. That's why we suffer. That view. But we don't question it. We don't even know it's a view. We just think it's true. So we've really got to learn to dig deep. And if we do think we like the Buddhist views, put our money where our mouth is and apply the logic. We've got to learn it first. You can't be a gardener unless you learn the botany. You can't drive a car if you haven't learned the theories. You don't get into your car every time with your book. What'll I do first? Put the foot on the clutch. Then I'll put my foot here. Now, you'll crash in a second. Got to memorise it and internalise it. We do that. It's called learning. Same here. That's why the Dalai Lama always says it's not enough just to have faith in Buddhism. You've got to learn it. You've got to learn the theories and apply them in your daily life, which means you're changing the way you see the world. That's practice. And this is the experiential implication here. That's why it's not a question of believing in karma. Some people just like it. There's clearly we must have had karmic connection from the past. You just fall into it again in this life. But that's not enough. Just to like something. Unfortunately now in the West, Buddhists, we conflate liking it with knowing it. It's not enough. It's not enough. It's just not enough. It's intellectual laziness. Got to be intelligent about it. Got to be, we've got to know the words and apply it. Apply it. That's what practice. This is practice every second of the day. Then you're really practicing Dharma when you do this every single day. It's powerful, but you can't do that if you don't know the words, because words are thoughts, and thoughts is what the first level of practice is. If you've been playing the piano for 10 years wrong, you've been applying the wrong theory. You've got to relearn. And right at the moment we've got wrong theories in our head about everything. So we've got to kind of replace them with the theories we've chosen to abide by, the Buddhist theories. That's our choice, not to force it onto us. That's our choice. This is the implication here. This is the practice. This is what practice is, Every second of the day, you're applying it. Every time a good thing happens, so someone's generous to you, wow, this is incredible. Not greedily just taking it, but realising, my goodness, this is the fruit of my past generosity. Conclusion, do I like this? Yep, I'd better keep being generous. But we feel embarrassed about this in the West. We think that's selfish. No, this is the first level of practice. It's for our benefit. This is for our benefit. Karma's about for us. Then you can do it for others. You've got to see the benefit to you of generosity, and you've got to see the lack of benefit to you of stealing. That's what causes you to change. We think that when it comes to nourishment and nutrition, no one thinks you're selfish because you eat well, because you want good health. They think you're intelligent. Well, don't think you're selfish because you want to be nice and kind and generous and loving because you want decent results. Nothing wrong with that. That's not in a manipulative attachment way. That's different. It's common sense. You've got to know the seeds you plant in your garden because you want a nice garden in the future. So you've got to know you want a nice body and a nice life and nice people and nice friends so you can keep on practicing when you die. That means you have to plant the seeds, baby. You wouldn't know what seeds to plant and which ones not to plant. It's just logical. It's common sense. It's down to earth. It's practical. If you choose this path, no one says you have to. Believing it is not enough. You're just resting on the laurels from past life, that's all. Eventually that will run out, you know. Next life you won't have any of it. It will be gone. You've got to put it in the tank again. Learn it again. Hear the theories. Don't just sit there meditating and doing our holy practices. Learn the words. Study the philosophy. His Holiness always tells us this, you know. I mean, I don't know that much, I can tell you. Many of my friends, my contemporaries, know far more than I do, have studied way many more years. But any word I'm saying here, it's come because I've tried to learn it. From reading it and thinking about it and saying it all the time. This is practice. This is my analytical meditation out loud. So thank you for coming and giving me an excuse to speak it. I really mean that, sincerely. I'd look stupid talking to myself, wouldn't I? So thanks for coming. You see in the text, they always at the end, they say, this is for my benefit. I've written this for my benefit. If anybody else gets benefit, that's a bonus. That's how I feel, you know. Okay, so karma. First one. We're looking at the first kind of suffering, bad things happening. We're looking at the causes of it. The first cause is the past action that leaves a seed in the mind. But what is it that, this is the crucial piece now, what's the other component and what role does that have? The other component is delusions, and they both subsume to delusions. Delusions is the main one. This is when we get to high school. We're going to go back and forth between these. This is junior school, as they call it in the Lam Rim, the lowest scope of practice. Now we go to the middle scope. Junior school, high school. As His Holiness says, it's like the education system, this Lam Rim. It's really true. So junior school is high school. High school is now we get to the crux of the problem, the mind, that drives the body and speech. So the first level of karma is about behaviour. The first 7, didn't finish, the first 7 are body and speech. So Buddha says, don't kill, don't take the ungiven, don't jump on the wrong partner. Next 4, don't say wrong words. Don't abuse people with harsh speech. Don't say bad things about people behind their backs. And don't rabbit on about nothing. 4 baby things. Now we might not go around raping and killing and jumping on wrong partners, but we love our speech. And we, in our culture, do not think it's a problem. You can get arrested for stealing $5, but you can shout at somebody and you won't get arrested. We don't value speech, you know, just was out of our mouths. We have no interest whether it's kind of valid. We have no interest whether it's true speech. We just think it's my opinion. I'm allowed to say what I like. You are. But other people have to listen to you. How rude of you. So speech is profound, actually. Speech is incredible. So behaviour, karma, the first level is all about behaviour. Behaviour is body and speech. And all the vows at this level, which we'll get to, are only about behaviour. They're not about the mind. All this is a fundamental basic starting point. Control first the servants of your mind. Control your body and your speech, because they're driven by what's in your mind. But we're so schizophrenic in our culture, we don't realise that. As Lama Zopa says, the vast majority of all humans on this planet have absolutely no idea that what they think, that what goes on in their mind first, plays any role at all in their lives. I mean, it's true if we think about it. And that, I'm going to say, Lama Yeshe would call us schizophrenic. He's not kidding. So not what we think of it. But we're so disconnected, in other words, from ourselves, so disconnected from what's happening in here, that we don't even know. Not only do we not know that it plays any role, we don't even know what goes on in our mind. That's how mentally ill we are, you know. That's our culture. It's terrifying. So right now, we're just not even discussing the mind yet, we're still talking just the body and the speech. And already that is sublime. If we could control a discipline, harness our body and speech, And the main purpose here is, the defining characteristic here of what Buddha calls a negative action, right at this level, the heaviest level of a negative action, isn't, crucially, this is the difference, it's not something that Buddha says you shouldn't do, which is the Christian one, or what your mummy says. Not that. Buddha's main defining characteristic, he says, defines a negative action at this point, the heaviest level. It's an action that harms another. So killing, taking the ungiven, sexual misconduct, stealing, lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, rabbiting on speech. They're all actions that harm others. But the crucial basis for why Buddha exhorts us at this point not to do them isn't because they harm others. That's compassion. That comes later. It's because they will harm me. This takes time for us to get. This takes time. This is the purpose of karma. The point of it is because it'll harm you, baby. So it's for our sake that this first level of practice is like compassion to ourselves. It's powerful. You can't skip this over. You can't just leap to the compassion wing. It's completely mistaken. This is really quite huge. So it's all about behaviour. Junior school's the mind. We haven't got there yet. We'll go without the lunch. It's the actions that are, it's like this, I call them the servants of our mind. So when we begin to, slowly by controlling my speech, it's, at least I stop myself harming others, and at least I stop sowing seeds in my mind that will produce my future suffering. But I will slowly begin to realise what's happening in my mind, because when I control my speech, I'm using my mind to control my speech. And then I start to become familiar with my mind. That primes me ready to get to junior school, when now I'll focus on the mind. That's when you really become a Buddhist. That's when you really become your own therapist. That's the real work. This is like the beginning, but already profound. I mean, think of the world. If the whole world behaved nicely, no one would harm each other. I mean, imagine that. This is controlling the body and speech, not the mind yet. Incredible. But it sounds kind of boring. What's Buddha's first instruction? Control your body and speech. Oh, I want to meditate, please. Well, you can't until you control your body and speech. I mean, ridiculous. It's obvious. It's a huge level of practice. Look at like I said, we don't run around jumping on wrong partners all the time and killing and raping. But we use our speech, we're brilliant at it. Look at the dramas this causes in the families, in businesses, in Buddhist centres. People have bad speech. Every centre I go, every couple of years I go to about 90 of Lama's open centres around the world. We are all exactly the same, a bunch of human beings, all trying to be good Buddhists. They're blur, blur, blur with a mouth, And the ones who don't stop are the ones that shut their mouths, I swear to you. There's always experience, I say, 35 years ago, one of Lama's centres in England, Manjushri Institute, more than 35 years, whenever it was. Huge centre in England, Lama's main centre in England, incredible centre. Started in the late 70s, after Chenrezig Institute was the first centre of the FPMT outside India and Nepal. 74 it started. Then Manjushri Institute in England, 75. And then Vajrapani in America. So I remember Manjushri is the first centre I went to after I became a nun in Kopan. I became a nun. Where did I become a nun? Kopan. I met the Lamas at Chenrezig a few years ago. And I remember I went to Nepal and became a nun. And then Lama sent us all off to Manjushri. He started his Geshe study program, like the precursor of his master's program, the 7-year program that we're doing now. But then we had this thing called Geshe program. Lama Geshe started that. We had that there, a whole bunch of students studying that. We had 80 people living there. We had every morning teachings, every afternoon teachings. It was an incredible environment, amazing place. We had about 30 Sangha there. We had Wisdom was there. I moved there and started working with Wisdom Publications in England at the centre. Amazing centre. Incredible, so vibrant. Then the schism happened, this total schism. Geshe Kazan Gyatso, one of my teachers, he took Lama Geshe Centre. He's now started his own organisation, as we know, the NKT, It was one of the worst experiences of my life. It was like a war zone, I'll never forget it. And Lama Zopa told us at the time, this is a result of breaking our third root tantric vow. As the Lama Zopa says it, speaking the faults of our Vajra brothers and sisters. So in Tantra, a Vajra brother and sister is one who's taken initiation from the same Lama. But in the Bodhisattva vow level, there's a similar vow, and even at this basic level of just the sutra teachings, entry-level junior school grade 1, don't badmouth people behind their backs. It causes schisms, divisions, divorces, breakups in people, in organisations, in relationships, in countries. So this terrible schism was one of the worst experiences of my life, and that's what Mum has ever told us. That blew my mind. It's breaking out root tantric vow, speaking the faults of our Vajra brothers and sisters. This huge schism in this centre happened, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that instruction. So powerful. I see in all the centres, there's always problems. Humans are political, we're all ridiculous, we have delusions, we all think we're right, we always fight with someone else and behind backs, I see it everywhere I go. In centres as well, human, it's okay, not complaining. But if we just shut our mouths, 95% of the problem wouldn't exist. When it goes to work in your mind, we forget that. Unbelievable, I see the evidence of it everywhere, it's outrageous, We can't shut our mouths. Vomiting on about somebody else, creating schisms. I'd rather have a punch-up and fight each other, but not talk behind back. I prefer that. This is up front. But talking behind backs is the poison, I tell you. We see it in families, we see it everywhere you go. I've always quoted my family, not that we're all saints. We're 7 siblings, Justin's mummy is one of my sisters, right? We're all close in age, we're all old together. My mother had 8 babies in 9 years. 9.5 years actually, sorry, exaggerating. So we're all old, we're all between 65 and 75, the 7 of us, one died. So we're harmonious, we're all very different, all very volatile, aren't we, Justin? Volatile, your aunties are quite volatile, would you agree?
Spirited.
We're spirited aunties, okay, and our brother's less spirited, isn't he? He's at the end, he has 7 older sisters, you don't wonder why, Anyway, the point is, when we were children, we were poor. And Mummy had babies so quickly we done up beds. She sent us to the best posh convent in Glen Isles, went to Sacré-Cœur. When the second lot she couldn't afford, so she sent them to the Presbyterians. Not the Presbyterians, what do you call it? The presentation nuns, I remember. So we all went boarding, because home was chaotic. We shared beds, 7 little children, all volatile, all living together. That's what we do with children. We plonk them all together, all the kids, they're all individual little people in space. We have our own rooms, our own beds, our own desk. Look, who's rich enough, nobody. So there's 7 little dynamic people. We shout and yell and kick. I'd shout and yell and kick, poor other sisters. I was the bully. Some would get asthma, some would get catatonic, some would get anorexic, more with our own problems, So anyway, there we were, but we loved each other. So then we got older, and we left home and did our own trip, and come back at Christmas, and we'd fight, of course you do. Then we forgive each other again. But there's only so much forgiving you can do, isn't it? Because as soon as the word's out of the mouth, we don't forget. It's like a pain in the heart, isn't it, when people say things? And we can't let go of it. You can't take it back once you've said it. Words are so powerful. We didn't hit each other. Except when I was a kid, I hit people. Do you understand? So words are powerful. But I'd say the last, 20 years or so, as we're all old now, this kind of, and all my sisters are all kind of, they're not like Buddhism, not religious. All brought up Catholics, but ethical, good people, moral, good ethics, kind, intelligent, helping people, good people. Every one of them, I'd say that, without doubt. But I can see there's a kind of unspoken agreement between all of us these last years. We don't speak bad things about each other behind our backs, pretty much. And we don't speak with each other about things that we disagree with. And we have many different philosophies, I tell you. So what's the conclusion? We're harmonious. It's even sweet between us. We even rejoice in each other's qualities. That's unusual in siblings. We really get along well. We don't spend a lot of time with each other. We couldn't. We'd be too volatile. But we really do respect each other now. And it's incredible to see that difference. I really mean that sincerely. There's harmony. And there's no pain there. There's stuff, this junk we lug around. And therefore there's no schisms. It's so obvious. That's just speech. That's just speech, people. So profound. And we are the beneficiaries. Oneself is the beneficiary, but everybody else as well, obviously. The first step is when we can see the benefit to ourselves. We've got to see that. We have this view that if no one hears me, it doesn't matter. That's the schizophrenic part. That's like saying, when the doctor doesn't see you smoke, it won't matter. That's completely nihilistic. It really is the proof that we don't have a view of cause and effect. Because we think being cause and effect means getting caught or being punished or rewarded. That's demented. There's no accountability when you're like a child. We're like a child. Want to be punished, don't be punished, want to be rewarded. That's what drives most of us. But here, we take responsibility. Do you think it's obvious that speech affects us? If just look at you, let's say you're home all day on your own. No one's hearing you. But you're shouting and yelling at the television, you're cursing and swearing at the news. Who do you think is exhausted by the end of the day? You! Because in your speech, no one heard you. You harmed nobody but yourself. It's so obvious. So obviously there's someone on the receiving end, you've harmed yourself and the other person. Well, I'm allowed to say what I like, we say. Yes, you are, but there are consequences to you. Forget other people. This first one of karma is for you. We feel bad about it. We feel guilty. Oh, I shouldn't be thinking about myself. Don't be ridiculous. It's really inappropriate thinking. Once you got this down, you see what causes you suffering, then you can help others. It's obvious. It's so clear. We have to get this. It's for our sake, you know. What causes my suffering? I want no suffering. I want happiness. So what do I do about it? That's the point. Because I'm the recipient of the results. I'm the recipient of everything I think and do and say. First and foremost, me. This is controlling your body and speech. And the most potent way, of course, to do that is to live in vows of morality. This is stupendous for the Buddha. He loves his vows. And there's a logic to all this. But we have to think about it, of course, you know. So the way to understand vows, the power of vows, we have to understand how karma works. So we'll do a little bit more about karma, just to remind us. Just to remind us. All this is reminding. You might have heard it 1,000 times, but it's good to always hear it. So every millisecond of whatever I think and do and say leaves seeds in my mind, then how do we look at it qualitatively, you know? What kind of seeds? What kind of seeds? And what kind of fruits? Well, some fruits are called suffering and some fruits are called happiness. Pretty simple. I mean, it's as simple as that. Some fruits are called happiness, some fruits are called suffering. There's a third category called neutral. Let's forget them. There's suffering and there's happiness. And at the grossest level, even, we know we don't want suffering and we do want happiness. At the grossest, simple level. Forget the more subtle levels. Just look at the simple level. This is genius school. We don't want suffering. So that means there are some seeds we plant that will ripen as my suffering, and there are some seeds that we plant that will ripen as my happiness. So at this level, we're mainly concerned with the weeds. We're concerned with the negative seeds. We have to know what a negative action is. There are some actions that are called negative. They ripen as suffering. There are some actions called positive, and they ripen as suffering. It's practical. It's down to earth, not moralistic. But we hear it as a very potent, kind of ridiculous moralistic way. We get all kind of nervous. It's like judging, you know. It's practical. We know the consequences of the seeds we plant. Some are called suffering, we don't want them, so we learn which ones not to plant. Very simple. So don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, don't this, don't that. 7 baby things. The last 3 are the mind. The beginnings, I say it this way, the beginnings of Buddha working on the mind. You really get seriously into that in high school, in the middle scope. And look into the root cause of suffering, the mind, the delusions. So here, this is referring now, this last 3 of the 10 don'ts of the Buddha, as I put it this way, the kind of the grosser, heavier levels of the 3 main delusions. Buddha's actually got this view, this amazing, in the Buddhist psychological model, in the Buddhist philosophical model, he actually articulates 84,000 distinct problems, distinct mental illnesses, distinct delusions. Let's look at this word first. We're going to go there after lunch, but we'll go into the meaning of it here so we'll get to understand these 3. Buddha's got this model of the mind. We'll go into lunch, after lunch. We've got neurotic states of mind, ego-based, fear-based, ridiculous, distorted, invalid, misconceptions, delusional, disturbing, you name it. They're ridiculous, they're the source of our pain, they lead us up garden paths, it's the cause of all suffering, all future realms, all the hell realms, all the dog realms, all the samsaric realms, it's the cause of all suffering at one level or another. And Buddha has found, you know what, honey child, they're not at the core of your being and you can get rid of them. That's your nirvana first. Then we've got the positive karma, it's positive seeds. You know, they're love, compassion, kindness, generosity, they're intelligent states of mind, they're valid, and there's a logic to what valid and invalid means, I'll try and describe. They are the source of our happiness. We can grow them to perfection. This is the whole time of being a Buddhist. Now, there's a third category of states of mind. They refer to them sometimes as neutral, which is misleading. It means they're not important. No, it means they're neither negative in their character, nor are they positive in their character, but they're important. They're like, I like to call them the mechanics of the mind. Well, you've got concentration, good memory. There's a bunch of these, a whole bunch, and they describe it very precisely. And we're not starting the brain here. So we need those. We need those highly developed. Whether you're a murderer or a meditator, you need good concentration. You need good memory. You need alertness. You need vigilance, these very precise states of mind. So these are neither good nor bad in their character, meaning virtuous or non-virtuous, but they're necessary, crucial states of mind. So as a person looking on your mind, you need these to do the job properly. And they're developed in concentration meditation. To be a good sniper, you need them. To be a good hawk, a good eagle to get your breakfast from 1,000 feet in the sky. Boom, you need powerful concentration, powerful discrimination, powerful alertness. That's in that sense they're not virtuous and not non-virtuous. They're so-called neutral. I like to call them the mechanics of our mind. So forget those for now. Let's look at the non-virtuous and the virtuous, or the negative, the positive, roughly speaking. So, okay. Many terms are many synonyms. In Lama Yeshe's Mahamudra, I'm going to read you from this book from time to time, as I mentioned. The teaching he gave here in 1982, commentary on Panchen Lama's beautiful text on Mahamudra, his special way of meditating on emptiness. We'll describe it, we'll talk about it. It came out last September. It's blissful. So when I wrote the preface, because I edited the book, Lama had this amazing way of talking, this incredibly creative, incredibly kind way of, at any way possible, to find words to communicate with us. It was like he was born a hippie. He somehow just knew how to talk to Western people. It's quite phenomenal. People really noticed it. He met Westerners for the first time in the 60s. And one person who met him then, one amazing American fellow who's dead now, he had a Gene Smith, he spoke Tibetan and lived in India for many years. Anyway, he was a very incredible guy. He met Lama Yeshe in the 1960s in Darjeeling. He could not believe his outrageous English. Like no logic, no powers, no commas, no full stops, no structure, but unbelievable choice of perfect words. Lama had this amazing power of speech. When I edited him, it's like he's kind of drowning in confusion sometimes. What is he saying? But his words are so perfect, you know. So, for example, I'll just say it here. I'll read what I said in the preface. I'll get it for you. About Lama's choice of words. Okay. So throughout the retreat, many of the teachers were given as guided meditations, Lama emphasising the experience of emptiness of oneself. We'll talk about this. He inspired students to go beyond ego's addiction to a limited sense of self, you know, blah, blah. So as always, in his desire to counteract a tendency in contemporary society to mystify meditation, he brings the instructions right down to earth. Okay, so there's no limit. So, he goes through incredible lengths to explain the meaning of what would otherwise remain really intellectual or arcane. And there's no limit to Lama's creativity in finding ways to do this. For example, he uses 21 different terms for affliction. The main term used in Buddhist psychology, which he doesn't use, to refer to the states of mind such as attachment, anger, and the primordial clinging to an independent self. Some of the terms are variations of accepted synonyms, but most are his own creation. So the thing is, this word affliction, like I tell you Lama's synonyms, ones he made up himself, ones he uses, to try and convey to us the taste of what an affliction is, you know. When you say affliction till the cows come home, who uses that word? It's medieval. Oh, I've got an affliction. No one talks like that. So I'm a Buddhist, I've got affliction. It's like a special other thing. No, it's called delusions. One of the characteristics of afflictions is that they're delusional. I'm going to go into this. Crucial. They're disturbing. So Lama's wonderful synonyms, I'll tell you. 21 of them. There's just 21 in this book, probably plenty more in his teachings. Artificial concept, confused thoughts, contradictory concept, delusion, deluded thought, dualistic concept, dualistic puzzle, dualistic thought, fanatical thinking, fantasy, hallucination, hallucinated projection, hallucinated vision, impure concept, limited concept, misconception, mistaken concept, negative mental energy, projection, superstition, and wrong conception. Got the idea? Recognise? They're the things that causes suffering. And you know the names of them? Attachment, anger, jealousy, depression, anxiety, simple stuff. Not bipolar, schizophrenia, these ridiculous words in Greek that we make up. They're all the Western view. These are Buddhists, you know. Every one of the this is now your point, Andrew, every one of the diseases in the West, I'm not being sarcastic here, you can use Buddhist psychology and the view of karma to explain them perfectly. That's not being rude. Buddhism is a coherent worldview. I'm not asking you to believe me. You've got to prove it yourself. Buddha's expertise is the mind. This is shocking to us. Even as Buddhists, we think, oh yeah, Buddhism is kind of one thing. There's real psychology over there, all these Greek words, you know. And we're so arrogant. Excuse me. Are we communicating here? Oh, I'm bipolar. Well, join the universe. We're all bipolar, says. The Buddha says it's a question of degree, and I am not joking, and I can explain that exactly. There are serious levels of it, I agree, and there are mild levels. We're mostly the mild level. What is bipolar? It's attachment and aversion. I'm going to go into these. And when everything's going nice, you're hunky-dory, everything's perfect, you're in heaven, everything's blissful, that's attachment getting what it wants. Then you collapse, the bubble bursts and Justin leaves me, and you collapse to despair and misery, want to kill yourself. Now you're the other bottom end of bipolar. Now it is disastrous. I'm not joking. It sounds like I'm being cute, you know. No, I'm not. So, that's an affliction. So the term they use in Sanskrit is klesha, affliction. Perfect English word. Tibetan is translated the same. So, what's an affliction? It's a problem. It's called a problem. It's called an illness is an affliction. Well, what kind of affliction? Often the lamas say, Geshe Sopa will say mental affliction. Mental affliction. Well, what is another word for affliction? Illness. Mental illness. This is very shocking for us, isn't it? Oh no, I haven't got one of them. Well, I'm sorry, you have. If you have attachment, if you have aversion, if you have anxiety, if you have depression, if you have low self-esteem, if you have arrogance, if you have pride, if you have jealousy, you have a mental illness. That's Buddha's view, but we find it so shocking to talk like this because we think they're normal states of mind. So normal that you'd be abnormal, you'd be mentally ill if you didn't have them. That's our view. So it takes a while to hear what Buddha's saying. It's so outrageous. I'm not being cute here, I promise, I'm being literal. But we have to see it, we have to find it, and look into it, and see if it's true or not. So one of the key functions of these afflictions, conveyed by these words, is that a misconception, a delusion. That's a great word in English. I know there's many other languages that is, you know, like in Italian, the word delusion, or like the Spanish, the word delusion is a bit like arcane, like afflictions. They just don't say the word delusion. It's there in their language, they don't say it. So these weird terms they use. So we make them put them in the sky because of that. So the key function of these unhappy states of mind, and the Buddha says there are 84,000. It's insane. They're a whole map of the mind. 2,000 years ago, the Hindus did this, people. It wasn't Freud. But they're luckily subsumed to 3. How kind of Buddha. And as Ling Rinpoche told us recently, young Ling Rinpoche, the reincarnation of the older one, who's the Dalai Lama's root guru, as he said in London, he said, 21,000 of those 84,000 are related to the root delusion called ignorance, 21,000 are related to the next one called attachment, and 21,000 are related to the next one called aversion, the 3. And then 21,000, the other 21,000 are related to all 3. It's a really integrated, totally integrated map of the mind. And where have these dudes got this map from? Looking inside. Not the brain. I'm not being rude about the brain. Just talking about the Buddha's view. The mind. The cognitive process itself. The actual process of thoughts and feelings and emotions, which for us is initially chaotic. It's like unedited James Joyce. We can handle the whole damn thing. We can put the whole thing together just by having a single point of concentration. And I'll read you from that later. The way some of the qualities you'd have is mind-boggling. It's like science fiction for us. And this technique has been around for thousands of years. We can completely harness the total energy of our mind, get absolute crystal clarity, brilliant control over every single thought. We can have clairvoyance, we can have total joy and bliss, we can have body like a feather. There are unbelievable qualities that come from just getting shamatha. Hindus invented it. This is not kidding, this is real serious psychology. Because we call it spiritual, it's all kind of wow, la-di-da, you know. And as soon as we have a word in our European culture that's fancy, we turn it into Greek. Oh, psychology. It just means the mind. It's Buddhist expertise. Are we communicating here? I hope so. 11:20, okay. I'm sorry, I make myself cough because I shout too loud. All right, so, okay. So let's look at these three. And I tell you, if we can get our head around these three, learn them deeply by putting meat on the bones from internal working, we will have a deep awareness of our own mind and the minds of all sentient beings. And this is not a joke. But you know what? Buddhist psychology refers to every sentient being in the universe. All the ants, all the hell beings, all the god realms, all the form beings, all the formless, all the animals and all the humans. It is a coherent view of the mind that refers to all sentient beings. It's a very interesting concept, that, isn't it? So what are these three? Remember here the context, we're looking at the second cause of suffering, which is really the main one, and the other one subsumes to it. Delusions. All these synonyms refer to this first category of the neuroses, 84,000 of them. They come down to three main ones. And this map is very coherent. There's all these 84,000 that come down, they've got all this logic all relating to each other, and they'll come to this three. And these three have this intimate hierarchical relationship. So ego grasping, the root delusion, the root mental illness, the root affliction, the root, misconception. So primordial, so deep, we don't have a view like this in our culture, in our modern science and in our psychology. It's called simply ignorance. But it's like all these words, they have very specific definitions, Matripa in Tibetan, unawareness. But it's a very particular kind of unawareness, a very specific ignorance. And it's double trouble ignorance. So not a regular ignorance is, if you say to me, what's that, Robina? I'll say, I don't know. That's not ignorance. That's easy to fix. You tell me it's a cup, I'll accept it, we're all happy. Well, we can get enlightened in a couple of years, I'd say, if our ignorance were this. But the problem is this. You say, what's that? And I'll say, I'll say, it's a vase. Now, it could function as a vase, but let's just say it looks similar, but even that's not a good enough example. It's too weak an example. I'll just say it. So, Buddha's telling us that in reality, the final way things exist, in reality, finally, I'll just say the words and we're going to describe all these later. Nothing has an intrinsic nature. There's no intrinsic thing. Just say those words now. But not only are we ignorant of the fact that things are not intrinsic, we not only don't know that things aren't, not only do we not know that things aren't intrinsic, we believe they are intrinsic. So we believe the exact opposite of truth. If we really didn't know it's a cup, you just say it's a cup, you get wisdom and you're cool. But again, I have to use an example. Pretend it's a knife. You believe it's a knife. It even looks like a knife to you. You're so convinced, but it's not a knife. Not only do you not know that it's a cup, you think it's something else. But here it's more powerful. Not only do you not know the truth, that there's no intrinsic nature, you think there is an intrinsic nature. We believe the exact opposite of the truth. So the main work is stripping away the lies from our mind, which the Buddha says we've been living in for eons, which we cling to like vampires. The main character of this ego grasping and all the 83,997 other branch delusions is that all rooted in being grasping, frantic, fear-based, ridiculous, and we believe in these lies for eons. So much so that everything appears to us through the lenses of these lies, and things appear. For so long you believe it's a knife that even looks like a knife. So that the job is to rip away the lies from the mind. That's the painful work, like ripping off our skin, in order to uncover the truth, which is naked in front of us right now. We're as blind as bats. This is maripa, the root lie, the root delusion about the very ontological status of me and everything else. It's the deepest one, the hardest one, and the one that finally, when it's gone, that's the realization of emptiness. You've cut the root of all suffering from there on. From that second you climb out of your samsara, from being an ordinary sentient being into becoming a superior being, and then you move towards your Buddhahood. You can't fall back after that. It's a massive turning point, a massive paradigm shift that has to occur in the mind. That's the realization of emptiness. But all this other work we're doing here has to happen first. Control your body and speech first. Get to the branch delusions second. Then you add bodhicitta. Then you can rid the mind of even the subtlest one. Then you're a Buddha. So these three main delusions. He calls them the three poisons. Well, we can call them the three toxic emotions. It's a good phrase. And all the others come from this. They're intimately connected to each other. So in our language, using the ordinary words ignorance, we can call that anything we like, but this is a very specific one. And the anger and attachment, those cute words. We don't go to the therapist and, I'm so attached. Shut up, Robina, go home. You know, because we don't have the same definition of it. Anger is considered healthy. Of course, if you kill someone, it's a drag. So we have these very different views about these states of mind, you know. So Buddha's got a very specific presentation. And you will not understand Buddhism if you just put your definitions onto him. That's kind of insulting Buddha. He won't mind, but you're making yourself a mess. You've got to know his definitions if you want to say you're a Buddhist. And most of us don't study it. Most of us do not study the Buddhist model of the mind. Even if we're Buddhists, we just do our prayers and ring our bells and go blah blah in Tibetan. We don't study Buddhist psychology, we don't study Buddhist philosophy, we don't study karma, and we don't study the mind. Minimum you have to if you want to practice it. Minimum you have to if you want to apply it. It's logical. Just being holy is not enough. So, ignorance. This primordial ignorance, so speaking loosely about it, this primordial ego grasping, its function is to cause us to be, it's deeply instinctive, but its function is to, this sounds weird, to have this separate sense of a lonely, concrete, bereft, separate, solid, set in stone me. It's fear-based, its nature, its taste, its flavour is fear. And it's a fantasy, made up by our minds. So on the basis of this deep primordial assumption of an inconcrete I, then it's an unhappy I, it's the irony, and then naturally it gives rise to the next delusion, effectively the main cause of suffering in daily life. And that's this cute word attachment. And that too is primordial, and it is multifaceted. The most primordial level of it, we get born with it from past practicing of it. It's at the level of virtual instinct, and it's called dissatisfaction. We're born with this deep assumption that we never question. I am not enough. I do not have enough. I am not good enough. I did not do enough. I have not achieved enough. I am not beautiful enough. I am not intelligent enough. No matter how much, Andrew tells me he loves me, it's never enough. It's this bottomless pit of dissatisfaction. This always, as we call it, the glass half full. The default assumption of attachment is never enough. Primordial dissatisfaction. This is the kind of the deepest level of the suffering of attachment. And it's constantly there. And you know what? Because it's so primordial, we believe it's true. That is the tragedy. That's the deepest level of attachment. The consequence of practicing it in past lives. This deep primordial energy of dissatisfaction. So naturally what it gives rise to, the next level of attachment, is emotional hunger. This hankering. For what? First level, objects of the senses, the outside world, out there. That's what we mean by life. Life is out there, the objects of these five senses. And we are convinced there's something out there, such that when attachment gets it, and then we ingest it, or have it, or see it, or taste it, or smell it, then we will get happy. So the belief in samsara is that attachment is this junkie in us that believes, when I get that, I'll get satisfaction. It'll fill up the gaping hole and alleviate the pain of the dissatisfaction. In other words, we'll get happy. This hankering, it's constant hankering, because it's driven by the dissatisfaction. This is all a function of attachment. So we're hungry looking, So depending on your karma, on your tendencies, on your personality, it could be boys, it could be girls, it could be shapes, it could be music, it could be clocks, it could be killing people based on your habits. It could be food. They're the gross level. The ordinary gross level is just the objects of the senses. Then there's a heavy duty level of harming others, coming from attachment, Then there's a more subtle level for all of us. Hungry for praise, hungry for someone to love us, hungry for a nice experience, hungry for nice feelings. It's primordial within us and it drives us. And this body is made for this. This body is the product of past attachment. The body of the five senses, And this is like a motor that drives us every millisecond. It's at the level of assumption. And the assumption is I haven't got enough, I've got to get something. And then the belief is when I get it, I'll get happy. Because Buddha's saying, this is the subtle kind of suffering, when you get it, it doesn't last, you've got to have it again. The more you get, the more you want, as my mum used to tell me. We'll go into that later. That's the subtle level of suffering. Just the motor that drives us. When you get and then you're searching for the object, and then what attachment does, its main function, its main actual function, which leads us up garden paths, is attachment makes the object look way more divine than it in reality is. It exaggerates, it embellishes, it decorates. As Lama says, this is a function of all these delusions. This is the key thing Buddha is saying. This is why they're delusional. All these delusions, and they've got their own job, each has their own job. Their main function is they exaggerate. As Lama says, they all decorate on top of what is there, layers upon layers upon layers of characteristics that aren't there. That's the function of these misconceptions, these lies, these disturbing emotions, these afflictions, these mental illnesses. And they've each got their own job. So ego grasping is the root one, which actually overstates, embellishes the very ontological status of the delicious cup. Attachment over-exaggerates the deliciousness of the cup, and then aversion over-exaggerates the ugliness of the cup because it belongs to Andrew. When he left me, I now hate him, and now I hate his cup. You get my point? So ego grasping is the mother behind underneath running everything. And then attachment is that does the main job, and then aversion, and that's multifaceted too, is the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants. Aversion is the response, is thwarted attachment. So attachment is the default mode. This hunger, this constant emotional hunger. We don't need to say it. It's not articulate. It's just there driving us. This aching feeling of not having enough, always wanting something more, always searching, never satisfied. And no matter what we've got, and when we get it, and then before we get it, is the function of attachment. It exaggerates it. So I decide I want a boy, and my eyes glom onto the shape called Andrew. So already you've written a novel about this person. And then attachment makes him divine, blinds you from his other qualities. You see this divine angel there. And attachment utterly believes, now I have found the cause of happiness. So what are you going to do now? The next level of attachment, really manipulate. It's a control freak. It's a control freak that will manipulate Andrew. This sounds very brutal, but this is what attachment does. If we only have attachment with no love and compassion, and we'll go to that in a minute, I'd eat him for breakfast and spit him out and get the next one. That's what attachment does. It's brutal, it's violent, but it's a honey-covered razor. But it's in the guise of nice. It's so wicked, attachment, It's the hungry little vampire in here. Not being mean. And we have to become familiar with it. And we've all got it, to one degree or another. But our saving grace is the second category: love, compassion, kindness, generosity, forgiveness, intelligence, ethics, patience. They're our saving grace. They modify our maniac. The maniacs in us, Less ethics, more attachment, more anger, more harm, more brutal, more suffering. So we have to distinguish between these two categories of states of mind. We give them equal status in our culture. Buddha is way more subtle, way more radical, way more precise. So 1,000 times a day, attachment won't get what it wants. The smallest noise makes you upset. That's a level of aversion, of anger. Your husband beats you up, you get angry. That's an extreme level. Attachment is when you don't... suffering, there's aversion. So aversion or anger, there's a spectrum. Anger is the volatile, obvious level. Shout, yell, kick. That's clear. More mild versions, irritation, annoyed, frustrated, upset. They're all anger, but they're mild. That's all. And then you've got internalised despair and depression. Because there's 1,000 times a day, attachment will be thwarted. Attachment is just this motor that propels us. It wants only, you see, attachment wants only the nice things. Attachment can't bear anything but the nice things. And what are the nice things? What I think I want. The nice sound, the nice smell, the right taste, the right touch, the right word. That's attachment. And we've got our own story of what that is. If you're a fisherman, the nice thing is getting the fish. If you're a torturer, the nice thing is torturing. If you're just like cake, the nice thing is the cake. If you attach to sound, it's the right sound. I'm attached to sound, okay? My mum was a musician, she taught me. And I know when I go to, when I was living in our San Francisco centre, and Geshe Dagpa, one of my lamas, he led the pujas. He can't sing. He can't sing, he's as fat as a tack. And all people shout, all treat him shouting and yelling their own tunes, you know, and I really go mad. You're supposed to feel all devotional. I couldn't even go. So I'm so attached to sound. That's why I was attached to sound, you know. I broke a Bodhisattva vow every time I didn't go, because, you know, well, Bodhisattva vows, anyway, I'll go to that later. Whew. When I was tone deaf, I would have loved the pujas. I mean, there's one fellow would boom with his baritone and no right notes at all. He's probably had a blissful time. I was so happy for him. But I still had attached to sound. Attachment is a junkie, and it's got its own. Each of us got our own absolutely clear, like a completely clear sheet of all the exact things we want. We know exactly our attachment. We mightn't think we know what we want, but soon learn when you don't get what you want, then you write, oh, that's what I want. I didn't know that. I'm attached to sound. I didn't know that until I heard ugly sound. So often you don't know what you're attached to until you don't get what you want. Then you know it was attachment. You see my point? That's due to past habit, you see, just habits. So you have to become familiar with it. So the point is this: attachment runs the show. It's a default assumption I must get what I want every second. And of course, as long as you do, that's what we call happiness. We're describing here the second kind of suffering, actually. Suffering of change. We'll go into it in more detail later. So that's driving us every second. So 1,000 times a day, and this is the truth, attachment just won't get what it wants. It's just normal life. The slightest sound will be the wrong sound. The slightest smell will be the wrong smell. You go to the toilet, you're disgusted because it's not the smell attachment likes. You know, the smallest thing, someone chewing their breakfast too loud. People kill each other for this if they live together in the same house and he chews his breakfast ugly, you know. You understand my point? Attachment wants certain things, and it wants what I want, necessarily, the fantasy I. This is attachment, and this is the point. When it doesn't get what it wants, that's when it feels painful. When it gets what it wants, we allow into thinking it's okay, because we've got a nice sound. Oh, I'm happy now. When as soon as you get the unnice sound, that's when unhappiness comes. And that's aversion. That's the second, it's called aversion. Anger is a volatile level, mild one, irritated, annoyed, frustrated, upset. Then more subtle, despair, depression. And we hide it all behind. We're recognizing, right? And this is all day, every day. This is called samsara. So, of course, Buddha's analysis of this is really quite more nuanced than we would say. We just call this normal. Buddha says, no, it's mental illness. His view of mental illness is more subtle than ours. That's all. That's all. That's all. In other words, this is why we suffer. He's being compassionate to us in explaining it. But because we have the victim, oppressor, blame, punishment mode, we just get tortured by it. Oh, you mean I'm a bad person? No. He's trying to explain why we suffer. We should be weeping in compassion for ourselves. These are the three. And all the other 83,997 are all branches of these three. But just these three, if we could unpack them and understand them from the Buddhist perspective, we would have a deep awareness of our own mind and our own suffering, and then we can help other people. I swear. That's the Buddhist model. Are we communicating here? Let's have some questions before we have lunch. So what we're getting into here is I'm going to get down to the last 3 of the 10. So I'll do that. No, I'll just finish that here now. Okay, we're talking about these 3. So now, in the first level of instructions, junior skill, entry level, grade 1 instructions from the Buddha, he exhorts us to 3, refrain from 3 of the body that harm others, 4 of the speech that harm others, and 3 that are related to us, which are the source of the things we do to harm others. And it's the beginnings of working on the mind. It gets us to at least refrain from the grossest level of ego grasping, which is a particular kind of ignorance, narrow-mindedness, fundamentalism. You see it around the world with people with religions and philosophies, but also in your own house. I want the dinner like that, and you have a fight about it. That's fundamentalism. Stuck, concrete, narrow-mindedness. We see that one. That's a gross aspect of this narrow-minded kind of view, ignorance, a gross level of it. Try and refrain from this. A gross level of attachment is very intense craving, which is when you're a junkie for the food, or a junkie for the sex, or a junkie for just getting things. And that's a really gross level of attachment. At least try to harness that level. Whose sake? Your sake, remember. The third one, at least attempt to harness the gross level of anger, which is wanting others to suffer. We can get angry, then we let it go. But holding on to it and wanting others to suffer, that's heavy duty, At least refraining from these 3, the grossest level. These are the 10 little instructions. Entry level, junior school, grade 1. Buddha exhorts us to refrain from these. Why? Because, Robina, honey, they will cause you suffering, precious one. They are why you suffer now, because of these actions in the past, and if you keep doing, they'll continue to cause you suffering in the future. So the point is, he defines the first 7 as actions that harm others, but his reason for exhorting us not to do them because they'll harm me. We've got to understand that. That's the point. This is the first level of practice, junior school. Are we communicating? So now give me some questions, please. 10 minutes before we have lunch. No, I've got to go now. I'm supposed to go to the monks. They invited me for lunch. It's 10:02. I said I'd meet Frank. When he comes in, he'll grab me. So come on, quick, a question or 2. Yes, Andrew.
So is karma connected? So are they all individual?
Bit louder, darling.
Is karma connected, or are they all individual ripening?
I can't hear you properly.
Sorry, is karma connected, or is it all individual ripening?
Both. We're all social creatures, aren't we?
Yeah.
And we interact with each other, don't we? So everything you experience, let's say you and I are having a relationship, and you're having a lovely time, that's due to your past virtue, and I'm having a lovely time, that's my past virtue. We think it's each other making us happy, but that's a sort of a catalyst for it. And then suddenly something goes wrong, you're experiencing yours because of your past actions, and I experience mine because of my past actions, but we interact together. So we have, and on the bigger picture, we experience things, we do things as groups, don't we? So then we experience the results as groups. So there's collective karma, but it's a bunch of individuals collectively doing a similar thing that gets similar results. That's all. Yes?
Sorry about that.
You don't mean that?
No.
Okay, what do you mean?
So let's say if you're in a car accident.
Sorry, what?
Let's say you're in a car accident, and then that's bad karma from whatever you've done.
No, yeah.
That, but then you get a payout from it. And then
A what?
good, a payout, money from it from TSA.
So then, question?
So then, is that connected?
Oh, no, that's nothing to do with the car accident. The car accident was a catalyst for your generosity karma in the past to receive money now. That's all.
What about the injury to the...
That's the result of harming other. They're 2 separate things.
Yeah, they're separate.
They're utterly separate. If it's called happiness, it's a fruit of a virtue. If it's called suffering, it's a fruit of a non-virtue. But we can know that one can catalyse the other in terms of this life. A bad thing can happen now that can cause you to, like you just said, get some money. Absolutely. But getting the money is the main cause is not because you sued somebody. That's a catalyst. But if you didn't have the karma of generosity, then you wouldn't get any money. But if you get the money, that's because of past generosity. And the thing that triggered it was that you're being abused, let's say, or having a car accident. That's also the result of your negative action. So they're separate actions, but one catalyses the other now, the results.
So what makes them?
Huh?
What makes them ripen?
It's like, if you think in botany, we can see that if you sow, generally speaking, the seed you sow first will ripen first. I mean, speak very simply, but the more you start to understand botany and how sophisticated it is, when you really were wise, you can know exactly why that shape, that colour, that time, because of this temperature 14 years ago is quite subtle. Karma's the same, it's all there, it's all explained. If it is a natural law, then it can be explained, and it is there, and that's what we have to learn to go to, that subtle level. The first one is learn the simple principles. Do you understand? Yeah.
One more.
Go, darling, yes.
So we're talking about your words. What about opinions then?
You mean thoughts in your mind?
No, when you share an opinion then.
So what about it?
So let's just say I think this guy should go to jail because he murdered someone. and that's my opinion and I share it, but then someone might disagree with it.
Okay, so that's mostly what our talk is, but that's how we all talk. We read the news and we have opinions about it, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so this is the point. This is the point. If we look at the speech and we realise, is it lying? Is it harming? Is it abusive speech? Is it speaking bad things behind backs? It could be possibly that one. If it's both, especially if it's motivated by a delusion, by your own anger, then it's deluded speech. It mightn't be a lie. It's not, it might even be abusing the person in front of you. It's not just, that could probably be just poor idle talk. But if it sows a seed of negativity in that person's mind, then it's quite heavy. And it probably would.
Would be the intention behind the reason for
So why would you talk about a person who deserves it? What would be the virtuous reason for doing that?
Well, maybe it's just topical and just...
No, that's not virtue. That's called gossip. That's called idle talk. That's called idle talk. So in other words, if we really think this very clearly, it's very quite profound, quite simple but profound. If we really try to do the reasoning properly, which is for your benefit, the only reason you would talk from the reasoning point of view is because you've got to sort something out. So that means the person in front of you, it has to be about trying to work something out, you've got to try to understand something. Maybe even want to talk about the news, but the person in front of you has to want to hear your words, and it has to be a person who is happy to hear your words and help you understand something. That's for your benefit. Then that would be virtuous. And the other reason to talk is that the words will be benefit to the person who's hearing it. There's only two reasons to talk. We'd be silent most of the time if that's the case. You get my point?
Yeah.
Compassion has to be, whoever's in front of me, the words I say must be of benefit to them. The other one has to help me sort things out. The reason for my speaking is to help me sort out my mind. That's the only reason to speak. You can also you say, good morning, Andrew, how are you, darling? That's called compassion wing. That's being kind to someone else. If you ring me up and say, come out, no, it doesn't matter. Anything. You guys, any words we say, we tend to think they're my words and I can say what I like you said, opinions. Yeah. But they're 99% bullshit, rubbish, my opinion, deluded, arrogant, negative, and gossip. So they're exhausting for me and exhausting for whoever hears it. And we're all such smarty pants, we all think we're allowed to talk about everything and know everything, and we all think we're supposed to have an opinion about everything. We all go mad, Look at the internet, vomiting billions of opinions about everything. I mean, people are going mad with speech. And we think, I have to have an opinion. No. If you're not qualified, shut your mouth.
And that's kind of where I'm asking, where does that's what I'm asking, where does Facebook and the wall and what you say...
This is exactly the point. You've got to know what's benefit. Is it helping you understand something if you speak, or is it helping another? If it's not, don't do it. It's really simple. Got to go. Thanks for coming for me.